Hey there everyone, welcome to a video on kind of our current EDF Jet, and for those of you that don't know what EDF means, because I didn't a few months ago,
right, yes.
Electric ducted fan, as of spring 2019. Now the reason I call out spring 2019 is things are always changing and we're always working on new stuff.
Always.
Hint, hint. But as of right now, I alluded, like, this all happened recently for the most part. A lot of these jets are brand new, released within the last couple months. It feels like it's been very quick. So very quickly, as you see, we filled up 3 tables of jets. So we wanted to bring them in, bring in Jason from E-flite, and kind of run through if you're looking at jets, looking to get into it, maybe if you're a first-time flyer or you're someone that's flown a couple things and you're looking to make that step. So maybe kind of tell us what you should do, what you shouldn't do, and we'll kind of point you in the right direction. So Jason, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, so we'll preface it first with, if you've never flown before, these are not the airplanes you start with. So these are not first-time pilot airplanes. Even with our wonderful safe technology, you really have to have some experience to fly an EDF. We also call it EDF Jet, or just Jet for short, because they're a lot faster usually than most of your typical prop job airplanes. And so none of these are recommended as a first-time airplane. However, some of these are great first-time jets, which we'll talk about here for you personally, because I know you're getting ready to move into jets. You've kind of worked your way up from Carbon Cub S Plus, which is a great trainer, Hobby Zone trainer. So if you're looking for a great trainer or a Hobby Zone line, tons of phenomenal airplanes. The E-flite Apprentice, the new Delta Ray 1, all great planes to start with. You move from one of those into something like a low-wing sport airplane, like our Commander MPD, or even a high-wing sport airplane like the Valiant. These are all great aircraft to kind of step up from a trainer. And then when you're ready, usually we recommend, somewhere around the intermediate skill set, you can move into jets. And so we've got a couple of jets here that we consider great first jets. Again, not first time airplanes, but first time flying a jet. And so I know for you, with the experience level that you've got now, I think you're ready to move into one of these. And the benefit of a lot of our models, they are available in the Buy and Fly Basic version with Safe Select. And that's great because those first couple flights, I'm telling you, it's fast, the sound is different, the look is different, and your knees will be knocking, fingers are shaking, and Safe can really smooth that out for you. With Safe Select enabled, you have pitch and bank angle limits, so you can't get upside down. You also have self-leveling, so if you let go of the stick, you get back to level. If you get in a bad position, just flip Safe back on. If you can have it on a switch, so you can turn it on and off. And I know a lot of experienced guys go, oh, that's a crutch, and that's not helping people. Yes and no. Obviously there's tangible benefits to using Safe. Even as an experienced pilot, I've been flown through the sun or something, a dumb move, completely, totally bad on my part, and I flip Safe Select on to get my bearings and then get it back, and so there's a lot of benefits to having it. But that said, I think that you guys will probably notice there's different sizes of jets here. And so we originally have had, actually for a little while now, the UMX A10's been out for quite a while, and that actually does not have Safe Select. It has AS3X, which is 3-axis gyros to smooth things out. AS3X is great because it does take care of a lot of the turbulence, the bounces that would come from that. So even guys that are flying $50,000 turbine-powered jets, ginormous, large-scale, composite, tons of scale detail, they're using 3-axis gyros because it just makes your life easier.
Yeah, and from my personal experience, I've only been flying probably 6 months now. You don't even really notice AS3X, which I think is the whole point.
That's the point, exactly. Exactly. I've flown the same airplane with and without AS3X. And you can feel the difference, but that's the beautiful thing, is that with AS3X, you don't really feel it. It's not getting in your way. I know a lot of guys are going to argue that, oh, AS3X gets in my way, makes my plane fly different. Well, yes, it really should not be the case. You may feel that's the case, but I can tell you, when you move the stick, you're in command. And so AS3X is just when you're not doing anything, it's taking care of those bumps and moves that you would normally have to correct on your own. It's doing that for you. So, now jets in general, because they do fly faster a lot of times, you usually can't slow them down and cruise around at a really slow speed. You're higher up on the speed kind of envelope, and for that reason, they're already kind of smoothed out relative to some prop airplanes. So they're not as lightly loaded. They have a higher wing loading a lot of times, and for that reason they don't bounce around as much, but even still AS3X is a great addition. So the A10 does not have Safe Select. All these other ones are available in a Buy and Fly Basic version that does have Spectrum receiver with AS3X and Safe Select inside. Again, Safe Select, you can or cannot use it. You don't have to use it. You can buy them without it, so it's not even active. If you do have it active, you can assign it to a switch which you can turn on and off kind of at your will. If you want to try it, great. If you don't want to try it, great. Or if you want to hand it to someone, like let's say you're at the field and I'm flying my Viper, I can flip on Safe Select and hand you the transmitter, and I'm not going to be like, wow, we got to have a buddy box, I got to stand right there and tell you every little input to give, because you won't be able to get the plane upside down and going straight into the ground. And if you get in trouble, you just let go of the stick. and it goes right back to levels. So yeah, so got a couple of jets here. I'll talk about the UMXs are great because they're small and they're relatively low cost. The A10 is about $150 US for the Bind and Fly basic version. It runs on a really relatively small 2-cell 800 milliamp battery. And so it's a pretty inexpensive, small-sized option. Of course, it's twin ducted fan, which is really cool. It's got a really nice sound with the 2 motors going at one time. Good speed, really good thrust. You know, and it's still relatively easy to fly because it's got kind of a Hershey bar, long Hershey bar wing, and so it's a good plan form. You know, that said, I would not say it's necessarily the easiest to fly jet on these tables, but it is a decent option for some people. We've got the UMX MiG, which is a re-release of an older airplane. We originally had that many years ago without Safe Select. Now we brought it back with more power and Safe Select, and a lot more guys are using this as their first jet. Now, for some guys, that's a good first jet, but for other guys, it's tough because it is kind of small, so it can be hard to see. It's pretty quick. It's not 100 miles per hour or anything like that, but it is faster kind of than your average airplane. But I bet you can kind of guess what's the best benefit to those small airplanes.
Well, the price, obviously.
Price, and then also space.
Yes.
So if you don't
I don't think about space because I have a truck, I have a base.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Space, no big deal.
So space to store, space to transport, and then space to fly, ultimately. And that's what a lot of guys are sometimes constricted to. And so they have to pay very close attention to the space required. Yeah, we're in the Midwest where we had a lot of land, so we can kind of fly all over the place. But let's say you only have a soccer field or something to fly on. You're not going to be flying this F4. No. It's not going to happen. No matter how good of a pilot you are, this is not going to be an enjoyable experience flying over a soccer field. But the UMX airplanes in particular, great for that. And so they come out of the box already assembled. The battery for the MiG is this little tiny 2-cell 280. Little bitty battery. And this is great because these things are like less than $10, so you can have multiples of these and go out and have a good afternoon of flying. Very, very quick and easy. You can have that with you all the time. It goes back in the box it came in. It has a handle. It's very, very convenient. By the way, those airplanes are both 4-channel. That's it. There's no retractable landing gear. There's no flaps. There's no special other features like lights or whatnot. Right. You know, as we move up the food chain, we'll start talking about some of those additional functional features. But moving in from those to something you could still potentially fly at a large park or maybe 2 soccer fields for a less experienced guy would be this new F-15 64 millimeter fan. And so those UMX airplanes have a little tiny 28 millimeter diameter fan. And usually in the jet world, we talk about fan size. So 28 millimeter, 64 millimeter, 70 millimeter, that's the diameter of the fan in millimeters. And usually a larger fan, larger airplane, larger fan, bigger battery.
Faster, I assume?
Faster generally, a lot of times, yes. Also, of course, more skill, generally speaking. So we'll get to that. But the F-15 is a great potential first jet. It's not necessarily the easiest plan form to fly. It does have some characteristics a little bit different because of the shape of it. So for example, this Viper jet has a nice long wing. It's got a different feel to it, more like a low wing sport airplane. F-15 flies a little bit more like a jet that has a different kind of drag bucket to it. It can kind of do high alpha flying, which is cool because of that. Both the F-15 and F-16 do that better than a lot of jets. But the nice thing about that, it's simple. It's 4-channel also, so there are no retracts, there are no flaps. It does have landing gear.
I was just going to say, so I don't see landing gear on here either.
Right. So we left the landing gear off of this one. There are quite a few guys who have told us they've been looking for a jet that they can fly over a grass field. The wheels on the landing gear are not that big, so you're not really going to be able to take off out of like, you know, relatively long grass. But you can easily take the gear off, give it a hand launch, and then land on the belly, no problem. And in fact, this thing has so much power. If you guys watch the videos on this thing, you can watch Allie just pushing it up with a finger or holding it by the nose and just letting go and it goes out. It is super simple to launch with Safe Select in particular. So it's got good power, it's easy to hand launch, but if you have a runway or you have like, let's say you're flying on a, I don't know, some kind of like dirt surface or a dry lake bed or something, put the landing gear on it, you can take off and land on that. With the landing gear on, it does have a little less speed, a little less performance, but it is still a nice touch. So I've flown it both ways. I'll probably fly mine mostly with the landing gear on it because we have a runway that I like to take off and land on. It's kind of fun. And so it's a very simple, very capable airplane. What's nice about that also, it uses a pretty common, or at least now, 4-cell 2200 milliamp battery. Back in the day, well, it's literally like a year or two ago, pretty much up until that point, everyone was using 3-cell 2200s and everything. A lot of our new E-flite airplanes, including our propeller-driven airplanes, like the new Turbo Timber or the Timber X, they're set up for 3S and 4S out of the box. So a lot more guys have these 4S 2200 batteries. Perfect battery for that jet. They're relatively inexpensive, easy to find, easy to charge. And by the way, you know, EDFs in general, flight times are a little lesser than a lot of propeller-driven airplanes because of the performance. And so the typical flight times, it depends on the model and how you fly and the battery you use, but anywhere from like 4 minutes to 6 minutes. Some you can stretch to 6 to 8 minutes depending on a higher capacity battery and throttling back a little bit. But the F-15 flies a good solid 4 to 6 minutes for most people. So it's a good choice. In fact, I think that would be a great first jet for you.
Yeah, and I think another thing we brought up, I think you mentioned, is you can actually go to a park, a reasonably sized park.
Right.
And I think that's another thing to bring up with SAFE. That's one, I don't use SAFE much anymore unless it's like a panicky situation, kind of like Jason was saying. But if I go to a park, I'm taking off and landing with SAFE on for sure, because there's other people there. There's private property, there's trees. So if I went to a park with that, I'm probably going to have SAFE on more than not.
Yeah, especially if you're hand launching, and if you're hand launching in the wind in particular. I see a lot of guys struggle. Hand launching is not like everybody can do it. I've seen people who, people that maybe have thrown baseballs a lot or footballs a lot are used to kind of flicking their wrist. Don't flick your wrist when you throw an airplane. It's really kind of a straight-handed, level, relatively nose level to down even, or even maybe slightly up. This one has enough power you can kind of botch it a little bit, but with SAFE, the nice thing is once it's kind of just left your hand, it locks in and it stays level.
Throttle up first.
Throttle up first, obviously. Don't throw it without throttle. Yeah. A lot of prop airplanes, most people launch with throttle. Some pusher prop airplanes, people throw without throttle. EDF jets, you're going to want to launch them with throttle. So, by the way, the UMX airplanes also removable landing gear.
Okay.
So you can pop the landing gear out and fly those over a grass field, no problem. But I do like having the landing gear on those. And all three of those airplanes have the fixed landing gear with a steerable nose wheel. So you can still taxi around, you can steer it on the ground, that kind of thing. And so those are all again, kind of the lower end, potentially good first jet choices. The MiG, especially if you're something small and lower cost, the F-15 is a nice step up. That's actually under $200.
I was just going to say, I think all three of those are under $200.
Exactly. Yep. So the MiG is $129.99 as of this video, $130 US, buy and fly basic. The A-10 is $149.99. It's got 2 motors, so it's a little more expensive.
That's fair.
The F-15 is a 64 millimeter ducted fan, and that one is $179.99 in the buy and fly basic version. And that again comes with a Spectrum receiver with AS3X and SAFE. We do have the plug and play version for $20 less, but a lot of guys for $20 they grab that Spectrum receiver.
Especially if it is their first jet.
Exactly. I strongly recommend. I would not recommend that as a first jet without SAFE, to be honest.
Okay.
And so I think any of our jets that we're recommending as first jets, the platform kind of lends itself pretty well, but the addition of SAFE makes it a really, really good choice. And then also just having AS3X in there to smooth things out as well. So kind of moving up from that, this is the Viper jet, and this is kind of what kicked off our move back into the jet realm. A lot of guys remember over the years, we were kind of big in EDFs. A lot of guys that work here are jet guys. Kind of over the years, it kind of goes in cycles, the industry. And so for a while, it seemed like everybody wanted Cubs. And then everybody wanted warbirds, right? And now we see kind of this strong inclination towards jets. And we love that because we're all jet guys. So we're like, hey, let's get a bunch of jets out there. And we're obviously not going to just come out with nothing but jets. We got a lot of cool stuff, guys, coming out from prop airplanes to jets, other things that do a little bit of both and some other. Anyway, so you guys keep watching for the new products. We'll have something new all the time. But that said, this airplane is extraordinarily high performance, but also very easy to fly. So my suggestion is, and we say this is one of the perfect first jets, and there's a couple of reasons for that. And so the big difference between this and the smaller airplanes is that this is where you start to get into those functional features like retracts and flaps. The things that those smaller airplanes don't have to keep the price down and to keep the size down. This is kind of where it gets to be a realm of practicality for having those features on the airplane. They weigh more. They do cost a little bit more.
You have to think about it a little bit more.
You got to think about it a lot more. Yeah, exactly. So you got this switch to flip for the gear. Now, granted, you can fly around with the landing gear down. No big deal. You don't have to retract the landing gear if you don't want to. With the gear up, it looks a lot cooler. It's also a lot faster. Yeah. But you do have to remember to flip that switch on and off. Flaps, that's a whole nother avenue. And again, this is why we don't recommend this as necessarily, go from an apprentice trainer to this. Because this is a whole other ball game when it comes to the flaps and the retracts. You don't have to use either one, but you're going to probably want to. With the flaps down, it can take off in shorter distances, and then with the flaps all the way down, you can land a little bit slower and in shorter distances than without. So this is a great full house airplane. My favorite aspect of this airplane, it bolts together. It's like, I can't remember, I think it's 7 or 8 screws and it's done. It's amazingly simple. This has a 70 millimeter fan unit installed. It has digital metal geared servos all the way around, the retractable landing gear, and this is a real scale airplane. There's not a lot of these in the world, but it was modeled after an actual full scale model. However, it was a lot of people don't know that. They kind of consider this a sport jet. And by the way, that term sport jet usually applies to non-scale, kind of sporty flying, usually bigger wings and more aerobatic than your typical warbirds and military-style jets. But this is a scale version of a model, not a model, but an actual airplane that was built to be kind of like a jet trainer. And so the real airplane is easier to fly than typical jets, and so is the model. Part of that is the long span wing. It's got plenty of wing area. It's got relatively large tail surfaces, got nice winglets, and it's got pretty wide spaced landing gear, and it's just a great handling jet. So if you've flown like a 1.2 meter warbird or a heavily loaded either high-speed airplane or low-wing sport airplane, this is going to fly a lot like that. It's going to handle a little differently because when you blip the throttle, you don't get the immediate thrust like you get from a big prop out front, especially the control surfaces getting that air right away. It is a jet, so it takes a little bit of time to get up on step when you punch it. But this airplane has a ton of power, and I got to tell you, even though we're calling this the perfect first jet, I've flown jets a lot for a long time now, and this thing is a freaking blast to fly. I love this airplane. This airplane will go with me to every event this year. It will be at the field with me every time I go flying because it's so much fun. It is fast. That's right. It's over 100 miles per hour, no problem. Has like almost unlimited vertical, not quite, but more than enough vertical for a jet. And it handles so locked in. It's like flying some guys might know this term, pattern plane, or a really highly tuned precision aerobatic aircraft. So this airplane is capable of all basic aerobatics and some. You can turn up the throws and it does wicked snaps and spins that you would have never guessed. The one interesting thing about this is it does take a little bit different battery than a lot of guys are used to. But this is going to become kind of a new standard size, I think, both for 70mm jets and then also maybe some other similar sized prop and kind of regular fixed wing type airplanes. This is a 6S 3200. Now, I've also flown this on a 6S 4000. I've even seen guys shave the canopy and stick 6S 5000s in there. Now, the catch is you can put a bigger battery in to get more flight time, but it's going to be nose heavy. Yeah. CG's way back here, battery's way up here. So if you put that 5000 in there, it's nose heavy. It's going to take some up trim. It flies, but I will say this, it kind of hunts the ground on approach. And so a nose-heavy airplane is flyable, a tail-heavy plane is not really, but the right CG, I gotta tell you, it makes a huge difference. So I love the 3200 in this airplane. This is the new Spectrum Smart series of LiPo, which is a phenomenal battery because these things self-discharge themselves. That's my favorite. It's kind of my shameless plug for these smart batteries. So I'll charge all my batteries before I go to the field, and sometimes I only fly like half my batteries. Right. I gotta go home all the time and discharge them all. This thing, you can set it to discharge itself after a day or two or three. Yep. It's amazing, amazing battery.
Now this one takes I see that's an IC5,
oh, yes.
EC3? Okay.
Yeah, so this has an EC5 connector in it. And by the way, so our smaller models, like for example that F-15, you're going to have a regular EC3.
Okay.
The IC3 connector, which you saw on the 4S battery here, is compatible. Right. These IC connectors plug directly into EC connectors. Right. There's a little pin in the middle here for the smart technology. Mm-hmm. You don't have to use that pin. And so there's space in the connector. It plugs right in. It's no problem.
Another thing I've told people, you don't have to have a smart charger to charge these.
You do not. Exactly.
I tell people if you're going to buy, even if you just bought a charger and you're looking for new batteries,
these are still great.
Might as well go. This is what we're running now.
Yeah, the self-discharge fact is amazing. If you have the smart charger, though, it's even better because you plug it in and it already knows to charge. You can set it, charge it 1C, charge it 2C. You tell it, you plug it in and it does it for you. It also knows how many cycles you've had on it, temperatures, all kinds of things. So the smart chargers are great. So for me personally, I'm going to be shifting to these on everything. I may not get enough smart chargers that only charge with smart chargers, but I will definitely have all smart batteries from now on. That self-discharging is amazing. Absolutely love that. So 6S 3200 up to about a 4000 will fit in this, and this is just a phenomenal airplane. 70mm fan. The F-15's 64. You guys can see there's a bit of a size difference, even though it doesn't sound like a lot. 64 to 70. This is quite a bit bigger model, and definitely requires. This is like a flying field type model.
Now another thing I'm also noticing jumping up to this guy is I'm seeing flaps, rudder. I'm starting to count channels, retracts. So you kind of need almost a 7-channel at this point.
Yes, so you can get away with a 6-channel radio, which a lot of guys have. So we do sell this bind and fly basic and plug and play. Plug and play 6 channels, no problem. You got your throttle, ailerons, elevator, rudder, flaps, retracts. So 6 is fine. And if you buy the version that's bind and fly basic and you want to use safe select, we do have a setup that we recommend now in the updated manual. We have an addendum and even a video that we did that walk you through assigning safe to the flap channel. So that said, that's my another shameless plug to recommend an 8-channel radio. If you haven't bought a radio, if you're looking to upgrade radios, for years and years and years, 6 channels is more than enough. But as we get into more complicated jets, more complex warbirds, and other scale models that have flaps, retracts, lights, safe, you're going to really want minimum 7 and preferably 8. We actually don't sell any more 7-channel transmitters.
More VTOL capabilities?
Yep, all those kinds of things. You're going to want to have more channels available. So I strongly recommend looking at an 8-channel transmitter. The Spectrum DX80, phenomenal transmitter for great value. That's a good model to step up to. And so you can get away with the 6-channel, better with a 7-channel. And now this is kind of an interesting dichotomy. So this is a 70mm ducted fan, relatively complex. We still call it a great first jet because it handles so well. It lands pretty slow and easy. It has a lot of power, good handling. Now that's also a 70mm jet, the F-16. Right. And there's a bit of a difference though. The full-scale F-15 doesn't have flaps. It uses flaperons. It uses the ailerons as flaps. And so you could program that into that model if you want, but out of the box we don't have it set up that way. So that airplane actually is just 6 channels. Okay. So you don't need the 7th channel to use Safe Select on that model. Now, I would not recommend the F-16 as a first jet. I think it is a better second jet. I would start with a Viper, and these are great because they use the same battery. They both use that 6L 3200 or 4,000 milliamp battery. You might be able to squeeze a 5,000. Heck, I think Allie actually flew with a 7,000 in it. It's nose heavy, but it will fly. We wouldn't recommend that for most people, but you know, that said, that airplane and this airplane are great. This is good first jet, great second jet, and they use the same battery. And the nice thing about F-16s is they have this kind of neat planform and this interesting drag bucket, and they're capable of high alpha flying. So if you watch our video, you'll see you can do super fast level flybys, and then you can slow the thing down to where it's basically kind of flying on the thrust. And it's high alpha, it's very cool. You'll actually see this in full-scale air shows. So if you watch the Thunderbirds fly, if you watch F-16s kind of fly solo performances, they'll do this high alpha flying. So the Viper can't do that. It absolutely cannot do that. The F-16 can because of its planform. The F-15 kind of can as well because of its planform. And so that's a neat airplane. I just love that airplane. It is, right now, that's probably my favorite airplane. These two airplanes, these are actually both my models. These are going to be going with me to every event, always at the flying field because they're so much fun to fly. They're also not as complex as some of the other stuff like this F4, which we'll get to here in a minute. And so it's just a fun, simple, but exciting flying experience. These both are over 100 miles per hour, tons of thrust. The sound is phenomenal. They actually sound almost like a real jet. They have very high blade count fans. Many years ago, we had this Habu airplane with, I think it was a 5-blade fan, and it sounded like a blow dryer, but worse. It's like a leaf blower blow dryer. You're just like, oh my gosh, it's screaming its brains out for the whole flight. And so over the years now, a lot has been done in the way of engineering new fans that have higher blade count for more performance and also a better sound. Way better sound. So much better, I gotta tell you. 12 blade fans in these, they're phenomenal. This Viper, by the way, has kind of like just wire struts. You guys can see that, but you'll see the F-16, we went with the upgraded shock absorbing struts that look a little more scale.
If you can see that.
So that's not necessarily better for everyone. Those ones are tough to compress, but the nose gear in particular is a good one to look at because it does have that shock absorption and a little more scale look and feel to it. But that said, the landing gear on the Viper is a little bit stronger for most people. That's another reason we recommend this over that. Now, both of these models, though, do have enough power that I can fly them, and you'll see in our videos, we fly them off of grass. And so grass where that F-15 would not get out of and those UMXs definitely would not, these can actually take off and land in higher, taller grass. Now, that said, everybody's field is different, so it depends on how many ruts are in it, you know, just how draggy your grass is. But that said, these are generally speaking start to be grass field capable more so than some of our other jets. So the F-16, easy to put together, great value. By the way, the Viper jet, I don't think we talked about the price. This is $249.99 in the Bind and Fly Basic. It's $30 less as a plug and play, $219.99. It's a phenomenal, phenomenal value. And this is just a ton of airplane for the money. The F-16 is a little more expensive because of the shock absorbing struts, because of some licensing you have to pay to Lockheed for the design. And so that one's $299.99 is the Bind and Fly Basic, or $269.99 in the plug and play version. And by the time you guys are seeing this video, most of these models should be readily in stock. Vipers we tend to run out of. We can't build them quite fast enough because they appeal to a very wide audience. F-16s are getting low on stock. F-15s have been hard to keep in stock. The new F4 is probably going to be pretty tough to keep in stock as well because this is a really neat subject matter. Now you guys can kind of see we got the 28mm UMXs, the 64, F-15, we got the 70 millimeters here, and then this guy is kind of the big dog on the table here, 80mm fan.
Yeah, and it's almost, I know I'm kind of looking at it, it's almost an optical illusion.
Yeah, it looks the same size, but
but we'll put in some close-ups of it. It's a big plane.
Yeah, so it's a couple pounds more than the 70 millimeters. Yeah, so it's a whole lot more airplane. And what's cool about this is this is like the the step where you're starting to get really serious about jets. And one of the nice things that we were able to do, the F-16 is a scale model, but it doesn't have a ton of scale details. So for example, we don't have gear doors on it like the real one does. We wanted to keep it simple, keep the cost down. It does not have full flying stabs, which the elevators work great. There's no issue with that. They just, it's not as scale. This airplane is what we call extra scale. And you guys can see one of the details is the lights. We've got landing lights here. We've got sequence nose gear doors. So when you retract the gear doors close. The light goes out, the landing lights go out. We've got navigation lights on the tips. We've got armament. You guys can see we've got the drop tanks, the other ordnance on here. And then we've got additional scale details on the surface. There's more panel lines. There's more hatch details. We got the shock absorbing struts. You can see we've got the dual nose wheels on there. And so this airplane is more scale than your average Bear. It's also got full flying stabs, which the F-16 does not have. And the reason for that is as you get bigger, you got a little more real estate, a little more weight to kind of work with. And so we're able to add those scale features. This does have flaps. It does have retracts again. So this is a 6-channel in the plug and play version, but you kind of do need the 7-channel radio if you want to use Safe Select. Now, I know a lot of guys are going to argue, well, this is for more advanced pilots, and that's true. This is not a first jet. This is not probably a second jet for a lot of guys. This is probably like you've been flying jets for a while, or you've been flying some heavily loaded warbirds and things for a while, you know how to fly. This could be a good choice for you. Still doesn't hurt to have Safe Select. Safe Select will still save your bacon in certain instances. It's a good thing to have on maybe your first flight as you kind of get a feel for the airplane flying around in their first couple circuits. And so, I still think it's very beneficial to use Safe Select. But that said, again, this is kind of like a skill level, 3 or 4 airplane versus some of these models might be 2 or even 3. But, this is really the higher end right now of our lineup where you got to have more skill. I will say this, though. This thing is super easy to put together. It's like 9 screws.
Wow.
So it's super fast, kind of like the Viper.
A lot of stuff for only 9 screws.
Yeah, you put this thing together in like 20 minutes, it looks like this. You're like, what the heck? And you're almost ready to fly. It takes longer to program the radio than it does to put the thing together. Now, that said, you can download our Spectrum file off the website and you can just load it into your transmitter and you can already be ready to go probably in 30 minutes. But that said, this is really cool subject matter. This is a little bit of an older jet now. A lot of guys probably don't recognize it as much because they haven't been in service, at least in our militaries, in quite some time. They're actually still in service in some places. But it's a really neat subject matter. Like when I was growing up, the first plastic model I ever built was an F4. We went to the store, I think it was a hobby shop at the time, that's right. We went in there and there was a wall of airplanes. I didn't know a lot about airplanes. I was 7 years old, but I saw this and I was like, I gotta have that for. That thing is cool. And so I built it, did a horrible job painting it, but this is kind of has a special place in my heart. It's a really neat flying airplane. F4s traditionally are hard to fly, or harder to fly than some jets. And so for that reason, that's why we recommend that higher skill level. But what's cool about this one is, I gotta say, this is the best handling jet in an F4 that there's been. So we had an F4 model a long time ago. Some guys might remember this. Had a fiberglass fuselage, had wood sheeted wings that were covered with ultra coat. That airplane was a little bit smaller than this, but a little heavier. It used the same 6S battery. So this one we can run anywhere from a 6S 5000 up to even this monster 6S 7000.
That's awesome.
This will fit inside of there. And so with this battery, you can get upwards of 6 to 8 minutes of flight time. With a 5000, 4 to 6 minutes. 6S 5000 is a pretty popular battery for a lot of uses. A lot of 60 size, 20cc airplanes use that battery. And so this is a great class of model though, where you can use batteries you probably already have. And again, it does take more skill, but it takes less skill to fly than that original E-flite 32DF model. That thing was a great flying airplane, relatively speaking, but it was harder to fly than this without a doubt. And I know some guys are giving us a hard time about why you guys have all these foam jets, foam. And so, there's a lot of reasons to build things in foam. You can get very complex curves and shapes out of it with a lot of surface detail. Now, you could get that in composite, but a composite version of this would be like 4 times the price.
Right.
So this is $449, $450 in the Bind and Fly Basic, $30 less than the plug and play, so $419.99. If this thing was all composite, it'd be $1,500 plus. Right. And most guys would be able to buy that then. And so we want more people to be able to enjoy jets like this. Plus, you can't get this level of detail still on some composite designs. And that said, I think that you can do a lot more with foam. And I know some guys argue, well, it doesn't hold up as well as long. If you're careful with it, it holds up a long time. If you're not banging into door jams and things like that, you're gonna be fine. It's gonna last a long time. It's easier to repair. for most people.
Yeah, so I was going to bring that up here at the end, durability-wise.
Yeah, and these are all mostly EPO foam. I take that back.
Right.
The UMX airplanes are EPS.
Okay.
They're that lighter weight foam, but they're so light that they usually don't break that much because there's just not that much mass to them. But these larger ones are all EPO, which is kind of the more rubbery, kind of more durable foam.
Right.
And so all of these will hold up to kind of bad landings pretty well. You might knock a landing gear mount out or something like that, but generally speaking, you're not breaking a wing in half.
And the nose is detachable on...
Quite a few of them. So like the F4 and the F-15, the F-16 got the magnetic attachment noses, which are really great because it makes transport easier and it also makes storage easier. Plus, they're easily replaced if you run into stuff.
If you lawnmower or something.
The Viper does not have a replaceable nose cone. It does have a nice hard plastic nose, and actually all of these have hard plastic tips, which make sure that they kind of keep that nice pointed shape to them. And they're all replaceable. They're all spare parts. So all of these airplanes, you have spare parts readily available for them. That's an important thing to note. You don't have to repair it if you don't want to. But that said, I watched a guy obliterate a Viper. He lost orientation. He went in hard. It was a Saturday. He brought it back Sunday, all glued together, and I could not believe it. It looked not awesome, but it flew fine. He's like, oh, it's great. It's no problem.
It looks fine once you're 100 feet out.
Yeah, it did. Honestly, it didn't look that bad from afar either. But, that said, that's how durable the EPO airplanes usually are, and that's why they're foam and they're not composite. Yeah. And, we hear you guys. We're not saying we're never going to do composite airplanes. I would not say it's out of the realm of possibility. But I will say at this point, foam is still practical for most people, especially if you're just getting into jets, you're just getting into flying. Most of our entry-level airplanes are foam. Right. We don't tell you to go and start out with a wood airplane. That's how I started back in 1989. I had to fly a 40 size wood built up ARF with covering, and when we crashed it, we had to repair it. And we learned good skills, my dad and I, doing that together. But that said, nowadays I would not force that upon somebody. You can certainly do that. You could buy, like, you built your Carbon Cub. Yep. Recently, and you can see it's a whole different animal than the foam airplanes you've been flying. So you got the little foam Carbon Cub S+, now you got your big Carbon Cub 15cc, and you can see it's a whole different skill set. Yeah.
And I'll probably fly them totally different too because of that.
Right, you're going to be a lot more cautious, I bet. I assume. I don't know. Maybe you're going to fly.
Because the Hobby Zone Carbon Cub, I'll throw all around. Like, I can land right there and just come in. It's going to be a little bit different.
You'll find that the Cub handles really, really well. But that said, everybody, when you spend more money and more time on a product, or if it's harder to repair, you tend to fly it a little different. Yeah. So, and I'm not saying people enjoy foam more. That's certainly not the case. But I certainly fly this thing a heck of a lot harder than my composite turbine jet, just because it's a lot easier to replace, and it's it's a whole different ball game. But again, foam is not. We're not saying foam is better than. We're just saying it's different and there's a reason for it. Yeah. So, I think that we've got a lot of different sizes represented here, a lot of different subject matters. We've got some very modern jets. We got some older jets. We got different sizes and classes, so you can fly in different places. Yep. So you can use different types and sizes of batteries depending on, what you can afford or what you might already have. And then also for different skill levels. So we've got everything represented here from, what I would say is your kind of intermediate first jet up to very, very high-end, high-performance, extra scale detail jet, and I think that we're not going to stop here. I mean, we'll just admit we're going to keep adding jets to our lineup. That's not all we're going to be adding, and we're not going to be adding them at a rate of like one a month. We were a little bit heavy here at the beginning to kind of build up our family of jets, so we had a good selection. But that said, we're going to be very strategic, and we've got some really cool new ground up designs coming, and some things that have never been available before ever in our market, which is really exciting because we want to push the envelope. I know some guys give us a hard time and say, you guys just, redo the same airplane. F-16s, there's tons of F-16s, or hey, there's tons of P-51s, there's tons of Cubs. But, guys seem to always forget about all the airplanes that we've come up with over the years that were our own designs, like Habu jets, for example, or, Timber airplanes, or, even the Carbon Cubs. Those are Cubs, but they're more modern day Cubs. And so, we're going to keep doing that, keep coming out with new products, keep innovating. And then at the same time, some of this stuff is just like ever popular. Yeah. F-16s, like everyone is going to like that airplane for many, many years to come, which is interesting because, I know there's newer jets like the F-35 and the F-22, but the F-16 is very iconic and a lot of people like to fly. It's kind of like I consider that to be the P-51 of jets. Or, the Cub of jets. Yeah. So, but I think we're going to have a lot more coming on that. And again, don't let any of these subject matters scare you off because they're not going to be the only ones we ever have. Right. We are going to do some stuff that's actually somewhat obscure. And we're also going to do some stuff that's never been done before because we do want to cover as many bases as we can.
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, it's probably been lengthy, but it's been a ton of great info. I'm sure if you're looking at buying a jet, this is probably going to help you a lot. And like I said in the beginning, this is spring 2019. If you're watching this in the fall, we might even have another whole table we need to add. So.
Yeah. And we'll try to update this as best we can as we get some new models in the mix. And what you also notice, we're going to start applying skill level ratings to a lot of our airplanes. So, you know, skill level 1, no experience required. Skill level 2, some experience required. A couple of these will qualify as skill level 2. But more and more jets will be probably skill level 3. Even upwards of skill level 4, depending on the subject matter. And so just watch out for that. And the reason for those ratings are just to help people who haven't been flying very long kind of be able to tell what they're going to succeed with and not succeed with. So for example, a timber is a 2. You know, you go from a trainer to a timber, no problem. But some of these jets could be a 2, but for the most part, again, I still recommend having 2 or 3 airplanes comfortably under your belt, and then you can move into your kind of first jet.
Perfect. All right. We'll let you guys go. Make sure if you have any questions, let us know. We monitor this stuff after the fact. We're going to see the comments. So if you have questions, let us know. We'll jump on there and help you guys out. So we'll see you next time. And thanks again, Jace, for joining us. And hopefully this helped you guys out. Thanks again.
Thank you.